will, that really is very similar to how we play a game for those guys that haven't participated. Yeah. I just think the confidence, I think he's just getting better really in all phases. You know, he's got great body control for a player of his size. He's got excellent hands. You know, his catch radius is obviously, he's got a great catch radius just because of the length that he has. And I think he's just getting more and more comfortable as he continues to play. I thought last year was great where, you know, you could see, I mean, no moment's too big for him, you know, making big time plays. You know, the catch that he had, you know, in the 2-minute drive where, you know, I call it bad play in a quarters coverage where he's running an in-breaking route and he aggressively crosses face, steps through it, goes basically through a gauntlet of guys aggressively trying to rip at the ball and gets extra yardage. And that play was instrumental in us getting in scoring position to continue to extend that game and ultimately end up winning it. But he just got better. He's gotten better and better. And I think Jared mentioned the other day, you know, we look at him as a starting player and he's going to continue to play a lot for us. He's feeling good. You know, he's right on track that we've had. And, you know, we've kind of kept consistent with that, you know, every other day format as far as, you know, he's concerned, and he's feeling good. Yeah, he does a great job. You know, he's gotten better and better. He's played a lot of football in this league, so he's an experienced player. I think he sees the field really well, and he's got a comfort level with a lot of the things that we're asking of him, Gary, just because he's run very similar, if not the same concepts in a lot of the same situations. So he's done a really good job. Certainly we feel great about where Jared's at right now, and God forbid if something were to happen, you know, that's why you go get Blake Bortles, because you do have confidence that if he had to, he could step in and lead the team, and guys have confidence and belief in him, and I think he's demonstrated that over the course of his career. But like you've heard us say, you know, he's got a great way about himself. I think he's picked things up really well, and you know, and he really solidifies that backup quarterback spot for us. You know, especially with how well Jared's playing, the comfort that those two have with one another, we're in a good place there. Yeah, I think just like any other player that you've been around that's great, you know, there's no complacency that sets in. I think what Robert's done such a great job of is he's demonstrated that he's a true, versatile, complete receiver. I mean, you joke with him, but when you watch the way he competes without the ball, it's almost as impressive as some of the stuff he's doing, whether it's carrying the football, running every route tree, you know, every route in the route tree, whether it be short, intermediate, down the field. He's a big-time competitor. He's got a great demeanor about himself, too. You know, he's an elite competitor. And when he steps in between those lines, you know, for such a nice even-keeled guy off the field, he's an elite competitor, and he's gotten better and better, and he was able to stay healthy for the entire year last year. I think everybody saw the production, and he's only gotten better this offseason, and we expect big things from Robert again leading the way. Not today. No, it was part of the format that we had set out, and that was kind of the plan going into today, Lindsay. Yeah, you know, I think it's to be determined. I think you feel good about Bryce stepping into that role because he and Micah were competing for that. And Bryce, you know, he's a guy that's played a lot of football, Vinny. He's done a nice job for us. He's got some familiarity with our system, having played in it now for the last couple years. He's a great communicator. So I think he's done a really good job. And then you look at the production when he's gotten his opportunities, you feel his presence. And I think he's going to do a nice job. You hate it for Micah, but both those guys were players that we had a lot of confidence in. And unfortunately, as a result of the injury that occurred to Micah, it kind of naturally, you know, brings Bryce into that role. But those guys were competing for that role as is, and now Bryce, you know, will have that role because of the injury. Yeah, I mean, he's made a lot of plays. I mean, if you're talking over the course of his career, there's a handful. But even just since he's been with us, in a lot of the the crunch time situations that you try to create in these practice settings, he just got a knack for the ball. The other day it was a 4th down situation. We tried a certain play, he bats the ball down. So whether it's coming clean on a rush, he's got a great feel for some of the different things movement wise, and he's one of those movable pieces on the defense that, I mean, I don't know how many guys have ever been an outside linebacker, rusher, all pro, and then also an inside linebacker, all pro, which I think is a credit to his versatility. He looks healthy, he's moving around great, and then I just think the accumulation of experience when you're a smart, conscientious player like Clay is, you just kind of that accumulation of reps, you just kind of put them in the memory bank, and in a lot of ways you're seeing repeated scenarios and situations that play out. And I've heard Wade say this, and other people say, smart players get better, and Clay is the epitome of one of those guys, and he's been doing it for a long time, and we're glad that he's here with us.
Are you guys anxious to ready to play in front of grandstands in the Coliseum?
Yeah, it'll be great. We're looking forward to it. Excited to see the upgrades that they've made, and the last time that we were there, it was a really positive night, being able to play the Cowboys divisional round. So we're looking forward to getting back there at the Coliseum and hopefully having a lot of good memories that we can create this season. And Denver starts that process for us. I think they've done a good job. I think the games end up being a good chance to truly evaluate those guys. Some of the settings that they're in, it's hard to look good blocking Aaron Donald. I don't care who you are. So sometimes they're in some pressure situations, but they've continued to get more and more comfortable with the fundamentals, the techniques, some of the things that Coach Cromer, Zach, and Andy are coaching in that room. But like we've said, been really pleased with David Edwards. I think he's done a nice job continuing to ascend, and hopefully those other guys will continue to follow that lead. Brian and Joe have been great. I've been really pleased with them. I was more alluding to the rookies and those younger guys. But when you talk about Brian and Joe, I'm kind of looking at those guys, even though they're second-year players, as veterans, with how youthful we can be outside those starting guys. But Brian and Joe have really done well. I think they're continuing to get more comfortable, really in a similar manner to what I was saying with David Edwards. But I've just been really impressed with the rapport that exists right now between Brian and Jared. Their ability to communicate, Brian's ability to confidently get out the calls, whether it be running it or if we're throwing the football and some of the protections. I think there's been some settings where you try to create some stressful looks for him that we really hadn't really been able to do in years past. And I think as a result of some of the things that we're doing on both sides of the ball, it's great work for both our guys. But I think Brian's really benefited from all the different things that he's seeing from our defensive structures. And then Joe, in the same manner, has done a nice job. Being able to play next to Andrew Whitworth with that communication, that's a great guy to be able to learn from. And I think both those guys are in a good position, and we're very confident in them. I think it's vital because really, other than the quarterback, you could argue that the quarterback and the center are naturally thrust into roles, Vinny, where the communication is vital and it's got to occur, and you've got to be great at it to be able to be efficient at that spot, especially when you look at how we're structurally set up from an offensive standpoint. You can't emphasize enough how important that communication is, and I think the rapport between the center and the quarterback, their ownership, whether it be the cadence, the calls and protections, the targets in the run game, all the different nuances that occur, with what we want to try to present to defenses, the different tempos, all that kind of stuff. You can't do it unless you have really smart players at the center and quarterback spot. Fortunately for us, we do, and both those guys have a command and a presence about themselves where you're naturally thrust into that role of communication, and you can't play if you don't do it, and those guys have done a really nice job. I think you just want to see him continue to improve. You want to see him make plays, do what he's asked to do based on whatever that call is that we're running defensively. He's getting more and more comfortable, and I think, it's a credit to Coach Henderson. He's done an excellent job with these guys. You really see some of these younger players continuing to develop, and Sebastian is definitely one that stood out. But I think you just want to see him play good, productive football. And what does that look like? Depends on what the defensive call is, Gary. But he's played good, efficient football to this point, and we expect a lot of the same as we progress through the offseason, really, as we finish up the preseason. Okay? Thanks, guys.